Hello and welcome back to the channel where we are building a video game from scratch using Love2d and Lua. So we're working on the collision for our new Spellcast. And right now we've got where it's shooting out, and we're rendering this blue circle as a sphere, or as a love.graphics.circle of the level that we're at, which right now this is a level 1 Aqueous Spellcast. So level 1 Aqueous is this big, and we're trying to figure out how to do collision for the entities so that we can actually trigger a splash on the geckos like this. So like this flashing blue is splashed and they slow down, but they need to only be, do that if we hit them with the spellcast here. So what we're doing today is the collision for a circular object against a square object, or against a circular. We can decide that the hitbox, or actually the hurt box of the entity, could be a circle for easier collision detection. So that's what we're working on. So what I want to do is test some logic. We've got this circle rendering at our mouse position. And if we could trigger this square to be colliding, maybe a different color when we're colliding, we can kind of see how good our logic is. Now we have an X and a Y that we're rendering our red circle at. And then we have instead of being red on the circle, let's say it's only blue on the circle and a green square. So this is what we're trying to do collision. So ideally we can get, whenever this blue circle's colliding with the green would turn red to indicate that we're colliding. So to indicate that, hey, if there's a collision, we can trigger the splash on our geckos. So for right now, we have a square here and a circle that we're putting at the location of our mouse position, which is fine. Okay, so what can we do to test the collision here? Well, we've normally done AABB collision, which works on two rectangular objects, but not the circle. And the circle's a little bit different in the sense that if we draw a rectangle, the X and Y are the top left position of that thing, and it draws it, to the right and down. Versus a circle, it draws where the center of the circle point is, and then draws it based on its radius. So we need to figure out how to check collision between this rectangle we're rendering and this circle. I think the way to try this collision is probably best off of a circle to circle collision. Because with a square, let me think. Yeah, with a square, it's kind of just too, well, how would we go to do circle collision with a square? Well, we would take, and it's tough. I'm not sure how to do it. because we'd have to take into account the position of the circle, then we'd have to take into account the size of the radius of the circle, and then project that out in every direction and check for overlap with a rectangle or a square. So I don't think square to circle collision is all that great for this. Let's see if we can get it working with a circle to circle collision first, and then we can decide if that's okay. And I think circle's better too, because it's more of the correct shape. Because when we're looking at a gecko, it doesn't take 16 by 16 pixels. There's some, space in between. So a smaller hitbox like that would hopefully work. Okay, we're going to keep the same X and Y, except this time we're going to give it a radius of half of a tile size to give a whole tile worth of circle there. So we've got our green circle and our blue circle. Now we just need to test collision here. And I think this is going to be a lot easier, because what we can do is calculate the distance of the two center points of these circles. And if the distance of those circles is smaller than whatever the current level cast radius is, then we should become collided. So I think this will work. So if this X and Y is our blue circle, then this is the target position. Okay, so before we go ahead and render our blue, we need to make sure we're not colliding with this location. So if this is, for example, we have a tile size 2 of the radius, so we can say the local cast radius is going to get assigned half of a tile size, so that we can put the cast radius here and right here. Okay, so now we're rendering the circles based on this variable size, and now we need to check using this radius, right? It's almost like we need a method. Yeah, this is just proof of concept, so we're just gonna have to kind of go with the flow for right now. But I think what I want to do is first get distance from 2 points. So that's the first thing we're doing. So it's going to be a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And yeah, luckily the squared will make any value positive, right? Okay. So what is the A in this scenario? The A is the distance, the difference in the X positions. So when we calculate the absolute value of the difference of the X positions, that is our A leg. to b squared. Our b leg is the difference in y positions, absolute value, squared, and then we solve for c squared to get the distance between 2 points. Then we check, is the distance between those 2 points equal to or smaller than the size of our radius? And if it is, then the circles should be colliding. So we'll first say, you know, this would be our x difference. So this is just a proof of concept to just test that we can get circular detection, collision detection working, which I've not done before. If this is successful, then we need to pull it out of this logic here in the play state and put it where it needs to go, which is probably in the projectile, or yeah, why not in the projectile? I don't know. Okay, so x difference. We're going to say that it's going to be called side A is going to get the difference with the absolute value of x minus tile size. Then the side B is going to be the difference in y position. So we're going to take our y minus the tile size, and we minus a tile size in both of these because tile size is the size of the circle. Actually, why do we do this? It's because it's the x and y value. Okay, so yeah, we say x, which is the x position of our, what do we call it? If it's target or us, right? Us meaning the mouse. So in this case, this would be the projectile x. That's what x is. The projectile's x minus tile size, which is the target position's x, which is why we're doing it here. So we take the difference of those x values for the side of A, take the difference of the y values for the side of B. Then we're going to say side C is equal to side A squared, right? Plus the B side. So this is how we get the squaredness, a squared plus b squared. So we can say side C squared, and then side C is the square root . Is it a square like this? Maybe? We didn't crash. Okay. So we have a squared plus b squared equals side C squared, and then we say side C is the square root of side C squared. So this side C should be our distance between 2 points. So here we're going to say, well, if side C is smaller than or equal to the radius, the cast radius, which in this case is half a tile size, then that means we're colliding and we want to do something else. So if we're colliding here, we're going to turn this to red. Otherwise, blue for the circle. So all we're doing is checking that distance of 2 points of the center points, and then making sure that is smaller than the cast radius, which the cast radius depends on the level equipped, right? It's close. It's close. It's working, right? It's detecting the collision, but we've got to be pretty close inside it. So maybe we're missing something here. The distance of the 2 points should be the a squared. Wait, what is it? Yeah, the a leg would be difference of x. Yeah, difference of y, yeah. Okay, and then we're checking if the distance of the 2 center points, ooh, okay, yes, of the 2 center points is smaller than half radius. So we just need to double our radius because we want the outside of the circle to count, not just the center of the circle. So when we go to do this, side C has to be under or equal to 2 times the radius. Yeah. That's looking like it. That's looking like circle collision. Right? That's looking good. So the idea is the blue spell we're spitting out here, the blue spell we spit out here, that blue circle right there is effectively going to be this blue circle. And that blue circle is going to test collision on any entity at the circle, at the center of the circle. So we give it a circle hitbox, at least for this spellcast. And it's great because as long as any 1 pixel of them are touching, it counts as a collision. I think this is good. I think this is good. So it does work. It does work. Okay. So how do we go implement this? Well, since there can be a bunch of entities and a bunch of, yeah, since there can be a bunch of enemies, we could I don't know where I was going with that. I guess let's just start with geckos, right? And we'll see if we've got to tweak anything. Right, like there could be a bunch of entities, so every frame we need to be able to say, you know, if we're aqueous casting, then let's go ahead and run the collision check. Now we should probably add that collision check into the entity class so that we can trigger the collision with a bat or a gecko or anything of the sort. So let's try to do that. Let's try to go put it in the entity class, I think. Okay. So we do have the unsplash here. the splash timer, we could do it here, right? So as an entity, we need to have a method that does this stuff, right? So we can say, and we should have a self.x already. Okay, so we're gonna keep our cast radius. We're gonna keep our Pythagorean theorem. The difference is this needs to be in I want to say this should be on a method of the entity. Okay, so we're gonna add this function called circle collides. Takes in a parameter of a target, and then it has access to itself, so then it should check and do all of this stuff. So first of all, now, we're kind of doing this set color stuff in the method. I don't know if that'll be problematic. The self x, self y. Then we get the squared distance. We square root it. Then we check the distance. Okay. So the hard thing is this needs to trigger the render, the set color for the render. Yeah, because ideally all we do is say, let's cycle, you know, if aqueous is a cast here in the update, entity update, we're going to say, okay, well, if aqueous is casting, let's go ahead and cycle through the given element, the given projectile, with any given entity. So we kind of have to cycle through all the entities to check. Okay, so the circle collides method does the Pythagorean theorem, and right now what it's doing is just ultimately just setting the color. Especially because this used to be just rendering it where the mouse was. We don't need that. So all this really does when we run the method is do a set color of either red, which is red means collide, blue means not collide. Okay, so I think we can check if this is just setting the color, we need to kind of add this method call right before or right around the projectile logic. But we do have this function circle collides now. Would we do this in the render? You know, we could make this return a value. Is that overkill? Because yeah, we should be able to say like, okay, well, if it circle collides, then go ahead. So maybe we do say we want to return true or return false. That way the output of this isn't just setting a color, it is actually returning a value so we can check conditionals. Oh man, it's gonna be a short stream tonight, y'all. This is okay though. In our update, we can do it wherever, right? Where we can say, well, if our aqueous casting, then let's go ahead. We need to check the entity with any projectile. So if we're casting, we want to run the aqueous projectile as the target, right? We want this projectile and we want to run the circle collides method and give it a target of the self, because the self entity does have an x and y width and a height. So we're saying, okay, well, the param we're checking, which is ultimately what we do with this, well, x position. Okay, this difference here, the difference is the self is the entity, so we're checking the entity's x position with the it's the projectile x and our own x. But yeah, because the tile size here was just the y position and the x position of the one that was stationary, which in this case would be the entity, which is self x, I want to say. So if we want to subtract the self x, we want to do that from the aqueous projectile. Okay. Let's try this. Okay. Well, if we are aqueous casting, we're going to go ahead and run that method. And the thing is, we can't run circle collides. Circle collides, it's got to be here. Okay, so circle collide is only a method here on an entity, so we're saying on the entity run your circle collides method. Target is an aqueous projectile. Yeah. Okay. So if we're running this, we should get a return true. Yeah, it's almost like we need to do a conditional here where we say, well, if this is true, right, then we want to do something like set the color, but actually we set the color here when we run the method, so we might have to run the method instead of invoke a conditional or whatever that means. So here we're just going to say, let's run that circle collides, and the target we'll give it is aqueous projectile. So we don't, it looks like we're not even using the target for this. How is that possible? Well, yeah. We don't use the target param at all here, right? Am I missing something? Because this should be the target. Yeah, it should be the target. Because yeah, the target is the aqueous projectile. So it should be target X here. Okay, and checking between the difference of the entity. So the entity is checking the distance between the projectile, because that's what's being passed in as an argument here. And then we're checking if we are colliding with that. Now, we're kind of assuming a circle here, even though an entity is square. An entity is 16 by 16, not a circle. So here, it looks like we've got this about right. Now we are setting colors here before we return. So that tells me if we actually invoke this as a function call, then if we love.graphics set color anywhere before that time where we're rendering, it'll come out in possibly a different color. So we do want to hopefully fix that. And we basically are saying if that collision comes back true. Now, I don't know how this works. Local aqueous collides. We kind of want... Do I want to put the result of the method into this, kind of? Okay, so we're running the method, we're storing the result in aqueous collides. We're going to check with the target. The target is the param here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we've got in the entity class, we're saying, okay, well, if we're casting, then let's go ahead and check for any collisions with the aqueous projectile. Now this is in the entity class, so this is for a potential bat or something like that, bat or gecko. Say, okay, well, we're aqueous casting, which is part of the global player. If we're casting, we're going to check for a collision. So we actually invoke this function here, store the result in aqueous collides. Then what we do, this is really weird. Because what does this need to accomplish, right? We just need to check for the collision and then trigger a certain thing like the splash timer or whatever in the entity class if this circle collides with a projectile. Okay, so we can return. No, we can't. Aqueous collides will be a returned value because we return true or false here based on collision or not. So that true or false bool is being assigned into this aqueous collides. And then we have some junk we don't really need because we're just basically saying, well, if we're casting, then let's check if we collide. If we collide, we want to do something, which is trigger the splash on the gecko. But for now, just to test and make sure it's working, be nice if we can get the same thing done as our test, but with the entity. So maybe we start drawing a circle exactly where the entity is so we can see that hitbox. We already are drawing the hitbox of the aqueous projectile. So then we just need to test that our collision, our circle collision, is working for those two things, and then we're good to move on. Okay. Man, it's just about bedtime. We're working on it. We're close. I think we can push through and do it. So we've got this circle collides. So this aqueous collides value needs to do this splash timer thing. So instead of this splash timer, right, we want to do, well, how do we and what do we do when we become splashed? And what we do is this kind of stuff, which is become splashed. We change the particle system color. Then we have to also reset our splash timer. Oh, unsplash. Okay. So yeah, we need a timer for the unsplash trigger as well. Yeah, we might not finish this tonight, man. I got started streaming too late. Let's just try this where we can say if aqueous collides, then we want to become splashed. So we're no longer doing the splash timer assignment. So if we become splashed, it should be because of this aqueous collides, which is from this method circle collides that we just wrote. So let's see, we shouldn't see any geckos. It didn't trigger. It didn't trigger. Now we're still doing this thing where we should be flashing blue and getting slowed down. If we messed up this aqueous casting, it could screw up all this. It does look to be aqueous casting though. Yeah. Okay, so that's not the issue. I got an idea. Let's just say we're going to start a color blue here, or green actually. Okay, so we're going to set the color to green, and then we're going to love.graphics.circle. Give it a fill type. and an X and a Y and a radius. And this is going to be at the own geckos. Well, it'll go on us too and our spellcast entities, but self X on the entity, self Y with a radius of a tile size divided by 2. We're looking for a circle on us, right? Which, this is all right. Tashio is an entity. Spellcast entities are an entity. It's just that we're circling over the top right of us. We don't want to draw at the top left. We want to draw at the center of us. Not the top left quadrant. There we go. Okay. So now that we've got our gecko circle, you know, on our entity here, we can check, we can do a thing. Yeah, we just want to test collision. So the collision check would be right here. We can do a similar thing where we say circle collides. Something like this. Yeah, we basically want to do something like this. We say, if our aqueous collides, then we're going to set our color. Okay, if our aqueous collides, we're going to set our color to red. Otherwise, we're going to set it to blue. Okay, and this is an entity class. Okay. Okay. Clearly our circle collide isn't quite working because we're still rendering it only green, not red, so this is never becoming false. So let's see, we have a method on our entity called circle collides. We're passing it in an aqueous projectile, so let's go look at it. We pass it in an aqueous projectile. So we're going to say side A is our aqueous projectile X subtracted by self X. Is this effective? Because we're trying to find the difference in 2 points. So if we subtract the bigger number from the smaller number, the absolute value should track out. But if we're doing it where the target value is a positive number, then subtracting the entity's X position should also I just feel like this part is wrong, right? Hey, Barty. Hey, it's going good. I'm trying to just talk myself through some of this circle collision stuff. Thanks, Barty. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, the demo's up on the website if you want to try it. And we're up on Steam now too. The demo is, at least. I think something's wrong here with the sides. We might need, because we need the distance between two X points no matter which one is on what side, right? So if we always subtract them like this, we won't always get the distance. So how do we ensure we get the distance between the 2 points, regardless of what side they're on? Well, I guess what we can do is absolute value each X. No, it doesn't matter. They're all going to be positive. I am not sure what to do. Yeah, we're trying to just find the difference in 2 points, like the difference in X axis between 2 different points. And right now we're just saying absolute value, but this should be a positive number. We just need, did we swap this around? Do we need to say self X minus target X? No. It's not quite working. It's like I need to pull out some math, some writing it out to figure it out. Yeah, I think it's just too late for me to wrap my head around it. We've got the boilerplate method there. We tested it and it worked, but with the mouse position, not the entity position. So we might have screwed something up there. Yeah, I think I'm just a little too sleepy to get it done. But we've got a good start on it. We tested that the collision logic works. It's just that the implementation of it on the entity isn't working. So we need to figure out what we screwed up there. But we're making good progress. And I'll be back later today on Sunday. Just, not at 12 in the morning. And we'll try to figure it out. And then the collision for the second spell here can actually trigger Splash, which would be really nice. And it'll start to feel like we actually have a second spell in the game, which will be exciting. I will call it here. We won't commit just yet because it's busted, but thanks for hanging. Thanks for watching. We will find someone to raid. And we will call it a night. If you want to play the game, you can play on Tashio.dev or wishlist on Steam and download the demo on Steam at steam.tashio.dev. And then if you have any questions or ideas, feel free to join the Discord. And yeah, just have a good night. I'll raid out here and I'll catch you tomorrow.